Hello there, everybody.
Okay. Back again.
Back again for a second round.
Drew Heifetz with my dad.
The Don, Dave
Heifetz.
Yep, the old boy.
Okay, so thank you guys for watching the first interview we did in Dave's backyard. It was awesome. Good info in there. Got some good history.
Now in Drew's office here at the Rag Central.
We are the rag hub of the world.
Yes, we are. They are. I'm not. They are.
Okay, so last episode we left off where Dave first got into the clothing business by finding a costume store, correct?
In Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine, where he bought out the costume store. He put it in his head shop, which was called Xanadu.
Xanadu, yeah.
Xanadu with an X.
That's right. Xanadu Kubla Khan did dwell. Yes.
Okay. So, put the rack of costume clothing in his store, and it blew out. The hippies loved it. And now we're going to move on into the next stages of the business here.
So let me tell you what happened next. This was really cool. So a friend of mine, a guy named Marty, told me there was a guy named Nick the Greek in Boston who was in the Army surplus business. So I got on, talking to people I knew in Boston, Marty, etc. I finally found Nick the Greek.
So, okay, wait, before we get into this, explain to the people what is... I mean, they understand what Army clothes are, but what's the surplus business?
Oh, boy. The surplus business was when guys go and they buy from the government. Not just the American government, lots and lots of governments. Because as the story progresses, I was in the surplus business. I was called D&D Salvage.
So basically, just to clarify, the government, after they're done with the clothes, obviously every army produces a ton of army clothing for their troops. They get rid of it and they liquidate it and they sell container loads of this stuff basically for nothing.
Well, they sell it at auction.
Depending what it is. Sometimes it goes for nothing. Sometimes it goes for good money.
That's
but
right.
a lot of times it gets recycled through. This is part of like the army economy. It's like use it a couple times, recycle it through, and then it goes to these surplus dealers.
Right. Or sometimes they make a batch that they don't use and they get rid of it, or they change the uniform. Or something gets lost.
They thought they needed it, and then the war ends. There you go.
So anyway, I found Nick the Greek.
Nick the Greek. It's a cool name.
Nick the Greek. He was in Boston. He had a bit of a warehouse. I don't remember where it was. But what he had was these tan, very light-colored tan dress jackets from the Marines. They weren't the dark Marine.
Okay, so we're probably talking like HBT. It has those like subtle striping? No?
It was a dress jacket.
Oh, okay.
With gold buttons.
Removable. They polished up the buttons, that kind of jacket.
Well, no, they were sewn in real buttons. Gold buttons. They wore them as dress jackets, like when you salute.
Yeah.
These were their tropical dress jacket. They have wool ones, and then they have tropicals they wear in the summer.
I remember those.
And a lot of them had, U.S. Marine. Some of them were just blank. But they were all brand new, all sizes. He didn't want them. I took them.
So by he didn't want them, you mean like he sold them to you or they were free?
Well, they weren't a big thing with Army stores. No one wanted dress jackets. They wanted combat pants. Yeah. They wanted combat jackets.
So explain to them. There was Army stores at this time selling used Army gear.
Tons.
And who was their main customer at the Army stores?
Hippies.
Oh, so the hippies were still buying from the Army stores?
They were buying. They were buying from the Army stores because it was cool to wear Army pants as a protest against the war. You had hair down to your ass. You took your Army pants. You put peace signs all over it, and it was very cool.
Some of the coolest stuff we've found actually has been old Army clothes that have been customized, drawn on. Like you find a World War II jacket that had been worn by somebody in the 60s that they painted like peace signs on and Woodstock logo and all this shit. That's some of the cool stuff. It's like, it's what do you call that? Cultural, folk art. It's folk art.
A lot of them would put, buy an Army jacket and put on the back, "Make love, not war."
Or patches on them.
Yeah, Vietnam sucks. I'm not going, or whatever it is. So
anyway, get back. Nick the Greek.
Nick the Greek.
Tell us about Nick the Greek. What was this guy like?
I don't even remember. I mean, I only dealt with him once or twice.
Was this guy an old guy when you were a young guy?
I I don't remember, honest to God, but
Okay.
I remember he was in Boston. I had my VW bus. I went to see him. He had like 2,500 of these jackets. And
Do you remember Nick the Greek being like fun guy to deal with, or was it like a hard deal?
I don't even remember. I remember I came out of that deal with 2,500 jackets for 50 cents a jacket.
All the same.
All the same, brand new, all sizes. It was fantastic. So then I found a guy who was a dyer. The dyer was in Swampscott, Mass. I remember the name of the town. Don't ask me the name of the dyer. He was a clothing dyer.
We're good. Keep going.
That's what he did. He dyed clothing. So I called him up.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
called him up.
Self-explanatory. So you found the dyer.
I found the dyer and I called him up. I said, "Can you dye these jackets?" He said, "Bring me some." So I brought him 100 jackets. Next thing I know, he dyed all the jackets in 20 colors. I had pink, I had blue, I had red, I had aqua, I had yellow. I mean, they were all dyed. So guess what?
So is this still era of the summertime store?
Yeah.
So you brought him back to the beach?
Yeah, I brought it back to the beach, and as I sold out that rack, I put out these jackets. I put up a big sign that said Sergeant Pepper coats, because Beatles in 67 or 68 were huge. And I took these jackets, I sold them for $14.95. They cost me about $1.50 to dye, 50 cents. Boom. I was like the hottest. It was the hottest thing I ever had.
That's
in my
called
life.
reworking, people. That's called reworking. The first reworker ever.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, but that's pretty OG.
It
That's
was
pretty awesome.
OG. Yeah, we called them Sergeant Peppers. They blew out. I had them like for crazy. So that season
So
ended.
another thing I want to say about this is super cool. So first of all, you reworked them, which is awesome. So you took something that was, pretty plain and ordinary. You made it cooler by adding dye to it, right?
Color.
By adding color, yeah. Also, what you did is you basically took something that was big in pop culture, because that Sgt. Pepper jacket was on the cover of the Beatles album, right?
That's right.
And you used that cultural icon to sell something, which, I'm sure it was done before you did it, and I'm sure it's good, and it's still done to this day. That's like when Kanye wears, a Metallica T-shirt, it pops off, or when Justin Bieber wears a Nirvana shirt, it pops off. It's like you saw that the Beatles were rocking this jacket on the cover of the album.
Rocking the world, man.
And everybody would want to buy it, and you made these sweet jackets in all these colors.
I called them Sergeant Pepper. No one called me on it. I mean, I just put up a sign.
No, it wasn't a deal. That he was just wearing an army jacket on the cover.
That's right. That's right. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
It just shows that, it wasn't, pop culture playing a huge part in what we wear and what people want to buy nowadays isn't a new thing. It's been going on since the 60s.
Oh, since time immemorial. And by the way, I cried like a baby when that idiot shot John Lennon in New York City. That was just so bad. So bad.
Can you remember, where you were when that happened?
I don't remember where I was, but I do remember after that going to the city and going to...
What city?
New York City. Going to Central Park, and they were still, this was months later, doing the vigil for John in the park. That was the worst, man.
That would have been a crazy event, huh?
Yeah, I love the Beatles. Oh, man, through my generation, we lost Martin Luther King. We lost John F. Kennedy. We lost Robert Kennedy. We lost Malcolm X. I mean, I could go on forever. Everybody got shot. And they didn't get shot just by crazy people. I'll tell you, man, they got shot by people who didn't want them around.
Of course.
Yeah, especially
the conspiracies.
Martin Luther King, man. He was a great man. And they shot him. It was just terrible stuff. Terrible stuff.
It's bad times. Let's
Bad
get
times.
back to the beach.
The beach.
The good times at the beach.
Beach were great. Beach,
The good times at the beach.
beach was great.
So
Store made tons of money.
that was your second big hit, was the Sgt. Pepper jackets, okay?
Yeah.
So this is what, 68 by now? Summer 68?
67 or 68. No, 67. I think 67. The end of 67.
67 was your last year in school.
No. I stayed in school till 70.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So 67, I closed the shop, went back for a second year, at the University Book Co-op. Did the book thing again, bought books, closed the store down, did my thing, had the little, 10 by 10 corner again, and did the book co-op for one more year. Then, in the spring of 68, I went to my landlord at the beach, and instead of doing one shop called Xanadu, which I did for 2 years, I think 2 years, I did a second shop. I did 3 shops that year.
Wow.
3 shops. I did
Moving on up.
I did a clothing store, the head shop, and then a leather shop.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were all called Xanadu. And the clothing shop, I went to...
Question. We still have the Xanadu Brody shop.
Yeah.
Which we called it. Which one was that? That's the head shop?
That was the head shop.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the head shop.
Which I have that sign. It's a really cool sign, Xanadu Brody shop. I'll show you that sign on another episode.
Yeah. Anyway, I got it in a container somewhere. I give it to Drew. So that summer, after we finished the school year, which was like, we closed the store down around middle of May. We opened the head shop again with a Xanadu clothing store and a Xanadu leather shop. And in the leather shop, we had a beadery where we, made beaded bracelets and chokers and headbands. And
so this was you guys making it, or people could buy the beads and make it themselves?
No, I had a guy who was a friend of mine and his wife, John. I can't remember his last name, but I remember he had 2 kids. He married a very lovely Aboriginal woman. We didn't call them Aboriginal. We called them Native in America. And they ran the leather shop. And they made moccasins, sandals, belts.
So this was like custom leather.
Oh yeah.
We're not talking like So when he said leather shop, I was thinking like biker jackets, but no.
Well, I bought new biker jackets,
okay.
And we imported a ton of those old hippie Mexican fringe jackets. They had.
Yeah, it's like button front, collar, fringe down the sleeves,
down the
side, back fringe probably.
And then we bought a lot of leather bags.
And you're probably beating the
fringe.
jackets.
People were buying the fringe, the beads, and buttoning and fringing them.
So you got to paint a picture here for us of like. Paint a picture of like the typical woman that would come into the shop and buy something, or just be a customer. Like, what do they look like? What are they wearing?
Well, the guys were all long hair. The girls were all long, straight hair. They would be wearing chokers or headbands. They'd be wearing hippie clothes, really bright clothes, with arm things like, and dresses that swooped out and tanky tops with breasts showing and, tight tops here with very loose bell-bottom pants. And the girls were beautiful, man. They really very nice-looking girls. And
summer at the beach, I imagine.
Yeah, especially at the beach. Yeah, so they would come in the store and they'd buy everything. Now, I met that year a guy named Leo Brody. Oh, my God. He was my mentor. He's not alive anymore, but he had a company called Anev Trading, and he was one of the first guys to make bell-bottoms other than the Navy and Landlubber.
This was before, like, Levi's had, like, a big bell or a 646
this was
or all that?
before Levi.
Really?
This was 68.
Wow.
I think Levi might have first been just started coming out, but I bought and the striped bell were the real thing, blue and white stripes, red and white stripes, any kind of pink.
So what was his brand called? Do you have a brand or just
UFO? Leo's brand was called UFO.
I'm pretty sure I found those in the UFO. I definitely found those.
And he was the coolest guy in the world.
So where is this guy from? Boston?
He's in New York City.
New York City.
And he had a big building. He also was an Army surplus dealer. So I bought a lot of Army pants from him. I bought a lot of Army jackets. I bought all the UFO line and tops and bottoms. I bought.
This is a side note. Side note to this. You're saying that this guy made jeans and he was a vintage dealer, right? Or an Army surplus dealer.
Army surplus dealer.
This is a common theme in the clothing business that a lot of successful businesses or a lot of successful people and big companies started out in the vintage business. such a good place to learn about fashion and learn about the history of clothing that you can then take into what you're going to do and make clothing. Like the people who started Diesel, right?
Yeah.
They were in vintage before. Who else is a good example of someone who started in vintage?
Oh, wow.
I don't know. There's lots of them. Anyway, so.
Oh, let me think of a couple. Reminiscence. Stuart from Reminiscence was strictly vintage. Then he went into his own line of Reminiscence. He became the hottest line in the 60s and early 70s. Stuart from Reminiscence. He had 4 or 5 stores, and he was big at the boutique shows. I think the first boutique show was 1969 or 1970, maybe 69. And Stuart, he had a huge thing there. And so did Leo Brody. He was huge. And so doesn't Dave Heifetz.
Plus, wasn't Scotty your buddy?
Scotty Scotty started in the early 70s, 73.
But he started in vintage and then moved into making his own clothes, right?
That's right. What was his company?
I forget the brand. What didn't Tommy Hilfiger do something before?
Tommy Hilfiger worked for my buddy, Big Mike, up in upper state New York. Big Mike Horbun had a vintage clothing store, and Tommy Hilfiger was a salesman there.
He got all his inspo and then moved on to be one of the biggest brands ever.
Tommy Hilfiger.
Vintage is a good place to start. So all the
Big
vintage
Mike
dealers
Horbun.
watching this, you're on the right track.
You know why we called him Big Mike? Because it was called The Store. His store was called The Store in New Paltz.
And it was mostly denim?
A lot of used denim, a lot of funky pipes and papers, posters, but a lot of clothes in those days. And Mike was cool, man. 6'3", 6'4", good friend of me and my first girlfriend, Pam, and Big Mike Horbun. Yeah.
Super
and
cool.
Tommy Hilfiger worked for him.
Yeah.
Up in New Paltz,
and
New York.
It's funny because we mentioned this to Tommy because we've worked with him personally and we worked with Tommy Hilfiger on some projects with Frankie Collective, our brand. But we got him on the phone one time, like directly. I spoke to him on the phone and we mentioned this and he remembered all this stuff my dad's talking about and was like hyped on it. So, but anyway, back to the story. Back to this guy who was making the jeans, UFO.
Leo Brody.
Leo Brody. So tell us more about this guy. You remember him?
Oh, I remember him so well. I saw him for so many years after that because I ended up doing the surplus business, and Leo was always in the surplus shows in Las Vegas twice a year called Associated Surplus Dealers. And then Leo was always in the boutique shows. His wife worked with him. His son took over the business. And UFO was a huge brand. 70s, 80s, even 90s. Might even still be around. I don't know.
So tell us about so back then in the late 60s, like what were you dealing with this guy on? What was the
I was buying pants from him.
You're buying the UFO brand?
Yeah, UFO
and
bells.
Were you buying surplus?
Some tops. He had lots of surplus, and Leo was smart. He didn't have just American surplus. He had British pants. He had German pants. He had Italian goods. So I got all of my foreign surplus for my clothing store from Leo.
Something that this man has always done really well is take things from other places and put them where he is and sell it to a different audience.
That's right.
You know, you got to think about how that works in this world. The world now is so small because everyone knows what everyone's doing because of social media and the internet. But especially before pre-internet, it's like if you went to the other side of the world and got some interesting stuff that they were into and brought it back, it's like brand new to the people where you're at, right? So you always got to look outside your bubble, but you always did that really well.
Thank you. Yeah. I tried to do it well. I was really in the middle of it because all my friends were pretty cool. I mean, God, there was the cool Marty Freeman and John Krauss. God, I can't believe I'm remembering these names.
This is awesome you're remembering this.
Marty Freeman and John Krauss had the coolest store in New York City called Limbo, Limbo. And I became kind of friends with John.
What year are we talking?
This is 68, 67, 69, okay. 70, 71, 72, 73.
So you were back and forth from New York a lot back then?
Oh, a lot. That's where you got everything. That was the hippest place to buy. I bought from Morgan Love my posters. I bought all kinds of pipes and papers in the city. Matter of fact,
So basically, New York would have been like the wholesale zone. You're going to
The
see
wholesale
dealers.
zone,
They
yeah.
have like, you know, all the suppliers were there. So
Leo
a
Brody
few
was
times a
in New
month you're
York
heading out there.
City.
Okay.
I think I bought my Land Lumber jeans though in Boston. I think they were stocking jeans in Boston.
So, okay, can I ask
but
you
wait a
something?
minute,
Okay.
John and Marty they were way cooler than I was. They were on St. Mark's Place, which was the coolest street in the city of New York. And my buddy Ronnie Middleman had a head shop on the Upper West Side called Pandemonium. Oh my God.
It's Pandemonium!
Pandemonium. And Ron was the coolest guy in New York. He had it for 25 years called Pandemonium. Then he ended up doing a clothing line called Pandemonium, which was printed tees and all kinds of funky hoodies and stuff, but new goods. And yeah, he became really, really famous. John Krauss and Ronnie Middleman were best friends. Marty Freeman and I were pretty good friends.
Later, you became partners with Marty, did you not?
No, Marty Schwartz. That was a different guy.
Okay, back to used clothing for a second. So, were you sourcing, besides Army surplus, used clothing at that time?
Used clothing.
Obviously, you had the score from the costumes, right? But when did you get, or when
No.
did you start to search out used clothing?
I didn't really find a lot of used clothing. I found a little used clothing in Roxbury, Mass. When I went to the Boston, there were a couple of small dealers there. I found small stuff, not a lot. So that
And what were these dealers like?
they were small.
Where were they getting the stuff?
They were getting it from the
Sally Ann's?
Sally Ann's. They were graders, but small graders. I'll tell you about a big grader I got involved with later, who was also in Massachusetts. But no, I didn't have a lot of vintage clothing. I had a lot of surplus. I had a lot of new goods in '68. Whenever I could find some funky stuff used, all the Army goods were used. I did some overdying in '68. I took Army pants and overdyed some of them.
Overdying has recently had a good resurgence, so.
And I also took Army pants and made shorts, cut them off and made Army shorts. But in those days I had 3 stores and I was really busy in the summer, so I wasn't able to really source a lot. But let me tell you what I did. So that was my last year at the University Book Co-op. I think I didn't reopen it, and I don't know why I didn't reopen it. But in fall of '68, I don't think or maybe I reopened it for one semester, and then I closed it in '69. In '69, I opened a store in Manchester, New Hampshire, called the Rag Barrier. It was the fall of '69. I ran my 3 shops.
And Manchester is where you're from.
That's where I'm
Born
from.
and raised.
Yeah.
So you went home. Where you live? Did you move back with your parents, or you have your own place?
I think I moved back with my parents. I was going with a girl named Pamela Jones in those days.
Is that the girl that you married?
Yeah, I married her.
You married her.
Yeah.
Later on. Another episode.
That's live.
We're talking about that, though. Come on. We're getting into that one.
Oh, God.
Okay. We got to get into everything here because this is all
Pam
good.
was great, but it was a big mistake.
So you moved home. You're in Manchester, New Hampshire. Now you opened the Rag Barrier.
Well,
sick
first,
name,
wait
which is probably a name. Sorry that we didn't even say in the first. I was talking about all the stores before. I don't even think you mentioned Rag Barrier.
It was called the Rag Barrier. It was on a corner, the best corner in town. It was a small store, maybe 1,100 square feet. What happened?
Oh, my light went off. Keep talking. Just keep talking. We're good. Keep talking.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, but I ran the 3 stores again for one more summer, and that summer I had great stuff. The summer of '69, I ran my bookstore for one more year, and then the summer of '69 I ran my 3 stores. I had the head shop, the clothing store, which had great stuff then, because I'd been going to the boutique show, which I think was in the fall of '68 and the spring of '69.
So for those of you that don't know, boutique show is a wholesale clothing show. So deal like anybody who has a good brand, or not even good, just anybody who has a brand or surplus dealers or anybody selling any kind of clothes would go there, set up a booth, and you can sell. Just like the Magic Trade Show or Agenda nowadays.
Yeah.
That show was a big one, and they had it in a hotel, right?
No, yeah, they started out in the McAlpin Hotel the first year.
So everyone would get a room.
Yeah, we'd get a room
in this hotel, and you'd go room to room, and like really have like it's more. It would be like way cooler than it is now, and probably way better of a party, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh well, in 1970, I had a company called the Rag Machine, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, sorry, go back.
So '69, the summer, I had a great summer. My last summer, I'm closing up the shop, and I decide that I'm going to, that's it. I'm done.
Moving home, New Hampshire.
Yeah, and somehow I met Pam Jones, came up to I don't know how she heard about me. She heard about me, this crazy hippie guy. She came up with her girlfriend, Lisa Minnelli.
We're here. We're looking for this guy named Dave Heifetz. This crazy guy named Dave Heifetz. Where's Dave Heifetz?
I'm closing up my shop. She shows up with
found
Lisa.
You at your shop when you were closing.
With Lisa Gorelli. I'm there with Artie Buffum and myself. We're closing up. We're literally putting on things, and I don't know what. I don't remember. Anyway. So
was it like, can I ask you a question about closing up the shop? Like, was it sad leaving did you know at the end of that summer, I'm probably not coming back to the beach here?
Oh, that was the summer of '69 too. I went to Woodstock.
Okay, well, we're going to get into a whole Woodstock episode separate because that needs its own whole thing. But so at the end of that store, did you think you'd come back, or did you know that would be it?
I didn't know. I boarded the place up. In the meantime, for a couple of years now, a guy named Marty Schwartz, who was from Boston, who had 3 kids, lovely wife, Nancy, who I still know. They got divorced eventually. But Marty Schwartz would come up almost every week, and he'd bring me a ton of hippie jewelry and costume jewelry, and he literally filled up the jewelry rack at my store, and we became pretty good friends. And then at the end of '69, the summer of '69, I went to Woodstock, and then in the fall of '69, I went to the Miami Pop Festival.
It's fine, keep talking.
I went to the fall of '69. I went to the Miami Pop Festival with a buddy of mine by the name of Art Buffum. We took a van load of stuff down. We got a little booth, and we had a great time, man. We stayed at Coconut Grove in Miami after the festival for 4 or 5 weeks. Just hung out, met some crazy women. In those days, in '69 in the fall, you used to be able to go to a park in Coconut Grove, Miami Beach, and the hippies served dinner for anybody who showed up. So the
question was, did they serve dinner naked?
No, they didn't serve dinner naked.
Because I went to Oakland or Berkeley, and the hippies still hang out in the park there naked. So how much nakedness was there in those days?
A lot.
Yeah?
Girls walked around always bare-breasted, and because it was make love, not war, it was free love, and it was pretty...
Good times, people. Good times.
Pretty good. And
okay, we're getting to the end of our half an hour episode here, which has been a great one. You've shed some really good light on some experiences. I want to know all these, when you did all these trips to New York, late '60s, you got any specific memories or stories from New York?
I used to love to go into Keel's Pharmacy, and I got to know Aaron Keel. He was the son of the owner. They were both Jewish, and I would go in there
because Keel's Pharmacy now is huge. Right?
Yeah, that's right. The Keel's sold, and now they're huge. But in those days, there was only one Keel. It was in the West Village, and it was the very old store where the old man worked. Anyway, I'm in there one day visiting, and Aaron says, "Hey, man, guess who I'm picking up?" I said, "Oh, who you picking up?" He said, I'm picking up the Jefferson Airplane. I'm taking him over to what was the big? It was a huge hall they had that all the great groups played at. I'll remember. And he said, "You want to come along?" I said, "Are you kidding me? Gracie Slick on the Jefferson Airplane?" So he says, "Sure, you can come." So this limo pulls up in front of Keel's Pharmacy. I'm not kidding you. I get in with Aaron. He goes over to this cool hotel, and Gracie Slick and the Jefferson Airplane get in the thing. This is no lie. I'm sitting there with Gracie Slick, Jefferson Airplane.
Super cool.
Super crazy. I'm just like humble. Hi, Grace. How you doing? And Aaron's talking to him like he's like buddies. So they take him over to this music hall. He asked if you wanted to go. I said, no, I can't go. I had some commitment or something. But I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's huge.
That was
Hip hop
so
rules
cool.
the world nowadays, but rock and roll ruled the world in the 60s.
And the Jefferson Airplane were at the top of the pecking order. It was very, very cool.
So what'd you guys do? You got in a limo?
I got in a limo. I talked to all of them. I talked to Gracie.
Were you guys
I told
smoking joints and drinking beers?
They were smoking. I wasn't smoking.
Why not?
I don't know, man, because I had to drive. I left my car there, and I couldn't go. I left my car in front of Keel's Pharmacy.
So what? So you did smoke in those days, though?
Oh, yeah, I smoked dope in those days.
What kind of consumption?
Not a lot, because I had to run a business. I would smoke when I was, at my pad, wherever it was. I had some really cool pads. I lived with Billy Adams, one of my best friends. He worked at the shop. I'm not a good friend of mine, Artie Buffum. He lived with me. We lived at the beach.
So where'd you go with Jefferson Starship? Did you go to were they going to a concert?
They were doing a concert. They were playing at the
you said
Fillmore.
Yeah, so
the Fillmore.
Did you go to
the
the show?
New York Fillmore? I didn't go because I left my car and I had
So you got to hang out with them before the show.
I got to hang out with them in the limo for about 20, 25 minutes while
Super
we drove from...
And you hung out with the Keels guy.
And the Keel guy.
So you guys were friends?
Yeah, we were pretty good friends, Aaron and I. Aaron was a very cool guy.
That's like one of the most recognizable names for pharmacies now.
Because I went to New York every week in the summertime on Sundays. So Sunday I would head into New York. That was my day, Sunday afternoon. Often I'd go with a girl that I was dating. Often I'd go with one of the guys or by myself. And
Where would you stay?
I'd stay with my buddy Jeff Zader.
What neighborhood was that?
He lived on West 8th Avenue. And he lived there with Razel. He was going to Columbia University.
Cool.
Yeah, he was a really good buddy of mine from UNH. We were really tight. So 68 and 69, I stayed with Jeff often. Or I'd stay at a cheap hotel or something like that. But most of the time I stayed with Jeff. And, yeah. So I'd get up first thing on Monday and I'd go to Morgan Love. I'd go to Leo Brody. I'd have 6 or 7 stops.
And those are dealers.
Those are dealers.
You're getting jewelry. You're getting some clothes.
I'm getting pipes. I'm getting posters.
Papers,
I'm getting blue jeans. I'm getting leather jackets. Whatever it was, I'd fill up the van. I'd get my ass back to Hampton Beach. Fill up the stores.
Sweet.
Yeah. But he asked what was crazy. I was in buying some herbal remedies at Keel's, and all of a sudden I'm in this limo with the Jefferson Airplane.
You never know what's going to happen
Going to
sometimes.
the Fillmore East.
Yeah.
Which was
That's
the
a
most
famous
music hall in New York City for many, many, many years.
Okay, so let's talk again. This is the end of the beach. You're moving home.
You want to continue?
Yeah, let's go for a couple of minutes.
All right.
We'll just finish this chapter, as you'd say. So, what's the girl's name again? Your ex-wife?
Pamela Jones.
Pamela Jones. Get back to Pamela Jones. Let's hear about her.
She was crazy. She came to the beach.
Did she seem crazy the first day you met her?
Yep. She was pretty crazy. And she was with a girl named
That's
Lisa.
called crazy at first sight.
She pulled up in a taxi cab. I'm closing the store with Artie Buffum. And she wasn't really a hippie. She was kind of just a...
Jewish girl?
No, not Jewish. And she was with this Italian girl named Lisa Gorelli. And they had a friend who knew me from college. And they were looking for me. I couldn't believe it. So that was, we kind of hit it off. And
And then all of a sudden, she's driving back to New Hampshire with you.
No, she wasn't driving back to New Hampshire. She was driving.
But how did you said she ended up?
We went
back
to
in
Marty.
Manchester
We
with
went
you?
to Marty Schwartz's house in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah, and we stayed there, and then I don't know how it happened, but we were together after '69, and we became a couple, and yeah, and then summer. That was it, and in '70 I closed everything, or '69 I closed the shop, and I met this guy Jack Wisehout.
So what did you do? So you close the shop, and then you're like, I got like some stacks in my pocket. I'm just gonna cruise. I'm just gonna see where the wind takes me.
Yeah. So this is how I got in the rag business. This is
okay.
it.
Well, yeah. We
So
want
I went
pictures though. We want the stories of your life beyond rag. Like, was it just party time for a few months after the beach closed?
Yeah, it was party time. It was party time. Yeah, I had a great time, and
So you went to Boston. Did you stay there for a while?
I stayed in Boston, and then I went. Pam went home, I guess. I did whatever she did, but we stayed in touch. Then Art and I that fall went to the Miami Pop Festival, and in the Miami Pop Festival, I met one of my future partners. I became a partner with Marty Schwartz, who I told you was the jewelry guy from Boston, who I get really close with because he came up every week for a couple years. And then I met in the great city of Miami at the Miami Pop Festival my second partner, Jack Wisehout. Jack Wisehout. And Jackie was
Keep
married.
talking. Keep going.
Jack was married, and he had a booth at the Miami Pop Festival. I think he was selling leather stuff or stuff like that he made.
Was Miami Pop Festival an outdoor festival?
It was an outdoor 3-day festival, and the big group was the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones came in around 12 o'clock at night on Saturday night in a helicopter. I'll never forget that. It was great. So we had a booth, Art and I, selling pipes and papers and crap. Actually, it was a lot. We had a lot of stuff because we took most of the stuff that was left over from the summer, because we closed the shop after Labor Day, and we went to the Miami Pop, and then we stayed in Miami. I knew Jack, so I hung out with Jack a bit, got to know Jack more, and then I went home after about a month and a half, and yeah, I hung out at home, and yeah.
Did Pam go with you to Miami?
No.
So you met up back with her later on?
Later on, yeah.
Okay. All right. This is probably a good place to end it for now. The next story we're going to get into is what? Give us a prelim of where you go next.
The next story I'm going to give you is the beginning. I'm going to talk about the rag barrier and how I got into the rag barrier, because the rag barrier was really one of my first
all rag
stores.
Okay, and then how you got supply.
From the rag barrier, I got into the rag machine.
Oh, and then the goods, man. This is where the really kicks off.
This is where it really kicks off.
That's where it really kicks off.
Yeah. So
okay, and then we get into the 20 other stores throughout his life. So there's lots to, and actually maybe we're just gonna do a whole Woodstock episode next time, because we've already passed over that time period.
That's right.
So we'll get into that another time.
But right now we're at the end of '69, going to the Miami Pop Festival. This is only a month, less than a month after Woodstock.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to this channel. By the way, I started a podcast. This is going to be available on the podcast. I'll put a link in the description there. Make sure you follow this channel. Follow us on Instagram. Follow Dave and follow his... Dave is now selling Hawaiian shirts as a retirement plan, right?
Right.
This is like, he's done. He wants to chill out. He's got a ton of sick Hawaiian shirts. It's called what?
King Kahuna. And you spell Kahuna.
We're gonna put a link. Don't even worry about it. We're putting a link.
It's gonna be on here. Come take a look. We got shirts from cheap shirts from 19. And by the way, if you say you saw the Don, you get an additional 20%. 20%. I'm gonna make it say.
Okay, what we'll do? We'll make a special promo code in this video that you can go plug in the website. can't really say you saw the dawn to anybody specific because it's a website. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Here, so check that out. Check this guy's website out, please, and follow him. We'll put his link down below, Dave Heifetz, because he's gonna bust out some Buddha wisdom on you daily. Okay, daily affirmations. So that's what we want to leave you with.
Buddha.
So we
Vipassana.
want your words of wisdom on life to end this.
Always ending the same way. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not here. Be here now. Be happy, not crappy.
Peace, because it's 69.